Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Shields. And today I've got a guest on that I've wanted to have for a long time. He's part of the network that Will and I were a part of as we grew our clinics over time. And, he was in a group with other people on my podcast that I've had before, Vinod, Blaine. Still haven't had the girls on from Magnolia, Amy and Lisa, but these were all people that we really looked up to. And Brandon Buehler, who is the president and founder of Cory and Buehler Physical Therapy in California, is one of those people. I'm excited to have him on. Finally, after a couple of years of doing the podcast, I've got Brandon on. So Brandon, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to bring you on because you guys have been super successful especially in a difficult area of the country in California. When we knew you back in the day, you had maybe 2, maybe 3 clinics, and now you guys are up to 7. You've been super successful in your model, and I've always looked up to you guys because you've always been really well founded, and that's a lot of what I want to talk about today with you, because I know that's the basis of your success. But before we get into a lot of that, do you mind sharing with us a little bit about how you guys got to where you are now, a little bit of the story of Cory and Buehler Physical Therapy, and what's made you guys successful?
Yeah. I'd love to. I'll share you a little bit about how I got into physical therapy, and then
Sure.
how that led into the birth of Cory and Buehler Physical Therapy.
Awesome.
So my route to become a physical therapist was a circuitous one. I initially had no idea what I wanted to do. I went to UCI and it was an engineering major. I was just good at math and science, so I figured engineering sounds right. And I started in that and I did well and I enjoyed it. But towards the end of my first year in college, got in a bad car accident and suffered a pretty bad back injury. And I I had pain for months, and I saw multiple doctors, MRI, was referred to different specialists, medication thrown at me like crazy. It wasn't getting better. I'm like, this is crazy. And someone, a friend of mine, said, "Have you tried physical therapy?" And I said, "What is physical therapy?" I had no idea what it was. And so I went to physical therapy, and within a week, I was already starting to feel better. Within 3 weeks, I said, this is what I want to do with my life. I can be an engineer of the body instead of an engineer for other things. So that's kind of led me down on the path. That's one of the reasons I'm just so passionate about our profession, that we can help people naturally, that we don't have to be spun in this web for months and months or years of pain until they finally get into physical therapy, like we hear all the time. I think a patient recently, 5 years of headaches, within about a month of treatment with us, headaches gone and tears rolling down her eyes. And this is the common question she asked me, common question we hear from a lot of people: why didn't I get in here earlier? Why didn't no one refer me earlier? And that's a good question, and something that us as a physical therapy community, we need to solve. Why so few people get into us? Why are they seeing specialists after specialists, MRI, surgery, medication, only to often fail that and then come to us? So anyway,
we definitely fall short in that regard. I mean, the marketing efforts of physical therapists, I think over the years have been so focused on talk to the doctor, get that referral from the physician, that we've failed, I think, as a profession to market what we do to the communities at large. I mean, it's so many people, even nowadays, I've been a therapist for 20 years. The question continues to come up like, so what makes you different than a chiropractor? Are you a massage therapist, or what do you guys do? And so many people just don't know. And that's a failure on our part, huh?
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the sad aspects of our profession is we all feel like we're competitors. It's a crazy thing. Like, my word, we see such a small percentage of our community, right? And we're worried more about our competitor down the street than we are the fact that 99% of the people in the community aren't getting into either one of us, right?
That's right.
We work together, banded together, we couldn't handle the business we have. But instead, our patients are going to a chiro or worse, getting MRIs and medication, surgery, and seeing specialists. So something we can work on. And what I love about what you're doing, Nathan, is you're working on that, right? You're trying to bring people together and through consulting and networking, and through these types of podcasts,
Yeah.
I'm assuming other people who've been on here like myself are sharing some similar ideas.
Well, yeah, and that's a lot of what I think the pandemic has led owners to do, is to not focus on physicians, because that physician pipeline essentially got cut off in a lot of places, right? So how are we marketing now to get those referrals in the door, to get those patients in the door and see them? Because people are still getting injured, whether we have lockdowns, shutdowns, doesn't matter. They're still getting injured and they still need physical therapy. So a lot of my podcasts recently have been about how to use social media, how to do the direct to consumer marketing route and spread our message, so that we don't necessarily rely on physicians, but also get the message out to the people that physical therapy is available to them.
Yeah, and imagine if our profession, all of us, whether they're next door or the next city over, if we combined our efforts and just promoted our profession, right?
Yeah.
That alone would have a dramatic influence on all of our business. And the concept of rising tide
Yeah.
would be in full effect in that
Yeah.
kind of sense.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so that kind of my story about becoming a physical therapist in terms of how Cory and Buehler physical therapy started. So my founding partner, Rich Cory, and I, we met kind of in as I was doing internships at a place Rich
Okay.
was, and we just became kind of instant friends. He was only maybe a couple years out ahead of me, and so we weren't far apart in age, and we just kind of clicked and connected as friends. And I finished up there and started working somewhere else, and he was working somewhere, and we would hang out a lot. We just would grab drinks or lunch, or he'd come over and hang out with my wife and I, um, and we were friends, but we also were both passionate about a profession. And so a lot of our friendship and our discussion talked a lot about the profession, right? We would just spend many evenings talking and really dreaming, right? Dreaming about like, hey, what if, right? What if physical therapy could do this?
Yeah.
Hey, what would it be like if the place we worked at provided this type of care? It was just this constant dreaming and visioning of like the ultimate physical therapy company. What would the dream vision of a physical therapy company look like? Talked and talked and talked and talked. And I remember one night my wife saying, are you guys going to keep talking about this? So you're going to maybe kind of follow up on this dream.
You guys going to do something about it.
You're passionate about it. So,
Yeah.
so Rich and I kind of met one day and said, listen, this is the time. We need to, we have this vision of a physical therapy model that we think is better and will provide better outcomes and results for patients. So let's do it. What do we have to lose? My house. That's about it. Let's move forward. So
there you go.
Yeah. So it's been a fun ride. And so since then, we've really grown since day one.
How long ago was that?
That was about 16 and a half years ago.
Congratulations, man. That's great.
Yeah. And it's been a fun ride. We during the first couple of years, obviously, we found that to be a very challenging time. We grew pretty quickly early on, but then we kind of, I think, just because of our good looks, and our charisma, just we were treating, right. But we hit this wall. We hit this wall where we were just capped, right. We felt like we were limited in what we could do. We didn't know what to do, how to get to the next step, and I think that's where we started. Luckily, to admit that we needed help, and so at that point we got some consulting. We started networking with incredible physical therapists like yourself and Will and Vinod and Nuala and Lisa and Beth and all these great physical therapists, and so just getting help from different people and talking and reading books. And I think just taking on the posture from that day forward of just being a learner, in terms of not just as a physical therapist, but as a business owner, practice owner who wants to improve the profession.
And that's something that I've always loved about you, is that you've always come from a place of so much wisdom. I've read books that you've recommended to me during the course of conversation. I don't even know if you remember that you've recommended books to me, but you've been someone who's always been looking for more information. And like you said, a learner, really trying to absorb as much as possible to improve yourself, not just professionally, but also personally. I know that. And so that's a kudos to you. And it just goes to the typical pattern of a successful physical therapy owner that I've seen in 99.5 or 100% of the successful PT owners I interview. And that is, they recognize that they need help. They we didn't learn any business things in physical therapy school, essentially. So we need to get some business acumen. Networking is huge in that regard, in helping you know that, hey, I'm not in this boat alone.
Yeah.
And there's other people who have some successful actions that they're willing to share, right? And so networking alone can be a huge aspect of it. And then, of course, there's always books that can give you inspiration and insight and that kind of stuff. In fact, I'm reading one right now called Grit by Angela Duckworth.
Yeah.
Isn't that a good one?
It's I haven't read that. It's on my like next
Oh yeah.
two book to read. Yep. I haven't like marked. Yeah.
It's an awesome book. And last night I just happened to talk about the topic that we're gonna, or I happened to read about the topic that we're going to discuss today. But because in the course of our discussions prior to this interview, you know, you told me that other owners, younger owners, might come to you and say on occasion, like, "What do you guys do? What makes you so successful?" And I thought it was great that you really came back to, you know what, we really live our purpose and our values. And I want, that's where I think I want to take this, because we've discussed this on the podcast before, not you and I, but other guests, about how to establish purpose and how to establish values and exercises you can take your teams through and how important it is. But I know that you guys really live that stuff, right? You guys reference back to it. You really use your purpose and values as a filtration system for the choices and the directions that you go in your physical therapy ownership. And so, yeah, tell me a little bit about that. What was the genesis, your story, if you will, about the genesis of really finding a purpose and values? And then we can get into like, what are you doing to keep it alive and well?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nathan. I appreciate you bringing this up, because this is something I'm super passionate about. It is funny, like you mentioned, we have people come up to us pretty often, either calling us or, you know, in you know, PT network meetings or wherever, like, hey, you know, what is your secret sauce? Like, or what tricks you got? What are you doing? Like, everyone thinks we have some magic thing that we're hiding behind the scenes for our success. Everyone's looking for that one answer. What's that one book that turned it for us, or that one marketing guru we're following? And it's funny, because I think we all want that in life, right? We want
Sure.
the pill that'll make us lose the weight, right? We want the one exercise that'll give us big biceps, and we all know that it's much more than that, right? It's more complicated than that. But the reality is, my answer to everyone is that it's really our commitment to our purpose and values. And I know it's can sound very commonplace for people to just say that, right? Throw that out there. But for our company, it's been so true. And so starting back to, I told you about the story of how Rich and I started the company, this dream, right? But a lot of our dreaming and visioning was actually starting to talk about our purpose and vision and values. And back then, we had no business training, right? We had, we're just young therapists. We didn't really know what it meant to create a purpose statement and core values, but we were smart enough to know that those things mattered. And so we started talking a bit about it. We didn't necessarily use the word purpose and values, but we would talk about what we wanted to be about, right? We talked about how we wanted the company to operate, the type of people we wanted. And so we started in those early days formulating our purpose and values, and the same kind of concepts from day one before we started the company. And I would tell people I started the company about a year and a half before the company started, because it started with Rich and I just talking about it and dreaming, visioning, and creating these fundamentals. And then once the company started, we after about a year or so, we decided to get real fancy and write the things down we talked about, right? Put it on the wall, just a piece of paper. It was kind of a rudimentary version of what we came up with. And obviously those things evolved a bit as we started to find out more, because as a young company, when you have a company, it's kind of like you go from being a teenager to an adult, right? Your company evolves and matures and develops, and over the time, our values did not change. They matured. And what happened about 6-7 years ago is as we've grown, our company's grown, we also have grown a leadership team, which is phenomenal, that we run the company with. But we decided to to sit down as a leadership team and to kind of relook in a new unit time at our we call it our vision statements, our purpose,
Mhm.
our values, our BHAG. And so we spent a whole day, maybe 2 days offsite, just looking at that. And what we did is we didn't add to it. We actually simplified.
Okay.
We looked at every single one and said, this is too complex. Like,
Mhm.
let's be real with who we are on our purpose. Our values, those two are great, but that's not us. Let's be real with ourselves. Those two just aren't really who we are. Maybe we like it, we agree with it, but let's focus on what we know we will die for. And so we went from like maybe 8 or 9 to 6 core values,
Nice.
and we kind of refined some of our other statements. We have what we call a team creed. We have our BHAG. We have
Yeah.
a care statement. So we have certain things that, and so we basically took what we've always had and we just refined it, and so that's kind of become the foundation. So if you want to know
That's
what our
cool.
sauce is for success, it would be those things.
What I really want to highlight is you thought it so important that you guys took 2 full days. One would be enough for me, but you guys took 2 full days to really focus on this, right?
Remember,
And
this 2 full days after already having stuff in, right? We've already met
yeah,
over years, formulating
exactly.
it, refining it, and we decided to take 2 days just to refine it, to
Yeah,
really set us on the stage for the next, so many years to reach our
yeah.
BHAG.
Yeah, and purpose and values shouldn't necessarily be changed all that much. Maybe they get altered a little bit. Like you said, you mature and you change a little bit because life and business environment changes over time.
Right.
But you took things and simplified it, and that sparked a memory in our ownership, in that we recognized that we spent too many hours in meetings, and so we simplified and became more efficient in that regard. And same thing, we had these values, but we didn't have any definitions behind them, and so we took the time to really come down to some concise phrases that weren't more than a sentence typically, that described those values, to be more concise and clear about what they really meant to the company. Even though we all had our own individual definitions, we felt it necessary to define what those values meant in our company. And so, and what that looks like, how that shows up. But like you, we also had some other things. We had cultural values as well that were separate from our core values.
Yeah.
And so there's the fact that you took that much time and were that specific and intentional about it. Could you say, after doing something like that 6 or 7 years ago, it provided more clarity and maybe even a better foundation, a jumping off point for continued expansion and growth?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, I think we've always, really focused on them and made them part of our organization. But I think at that point, it was kind of another turning point in the company where we decided to more fully commit to our purpose and values than ever.
Hmm.
And at that point, we got that much more committed to actually making sure that every part of the organization was um, ran based on those values, or
Hmm.
reflected those values. So we we committed to instilling that more in the company and found other creative ways to make those alive in the organization.
So let's get a little bit deeper then into this specifically. Like, what are some of the action items you take to have your purpose and value lived through each individual in the clinic? How does it get from the owners and really distill down into the everyday actions that even someone at the front desk, or if you use technicians, to get down to the technician? What are some of those things that keep it alive and well, and don't collect dust on the shelf?
That's a great, yeah. One thing that is interesting is you hear a lot of people talk about, oh yeah, I've done that, I got that.
Yeah.
But most of my friends, not just in physical therapy, I really try to connect with a lot of my friends who have businesses outside of our industry,
Hmm.
because I love learning from people outside of our industry. But I find majority of people I know who have done this, um, it's kind of just something they put on the wall, right? It's like, yep, we got it in a break room, like, or yep, it's in our policy manual. So which means everyone read it once and then kind of forgot about it. So I think it's a mistake a lot of us make. I think that purpose and values and vision statements, those only have an effect on the company if they are ingrained in the fabric of the company, right? If they're part of, we talk about, we talk a lot about, Pinocchio, at some point, uh, became human, right? Because he you got a soul, right? Or something. I forget, it's been a while since I saw that, but
Yeah,
we kind of talk about our company is kind of not human until it has its kind of purpose and values breathed into it.
I see.
Or another way to say it is the personality of our company is based on our purpose and value statements.
Hmm.
So it's kind of the personality, it's who we are as a company. And so it has to be lived and breathed. And so there's multiple ways we do that, but starting with, first of all, recruiting and hiring, right? Just the first entry point of the company starts with measuring every single purpose to our purpose and our values. In fact, we use some statements even in our recruitment ads about our company, right? Because
Yeah.
we want to try to attract people who kind of are attracted to that, right? And the very first interview, when we do our interviews, the very first questions are all against kind of our core values and our core competencies for that position. So right off the
Okay.
bat, we're asking questions based on each of our value because
Hmm.
and we try not to take generalizations. We're trying to get specifics on how they maybe align with the value of teamwork, right?
Hmm.
Like you can say you do, but tell me how and what that means to you and
Hmm.
describe, so you can really just based on the initial screening interview, you can get an idea and if someone aligns with their values and if they don't, it doesn't mean they're bad or we're bad. It just, this is who we are. Like we know who we are now. We still have a lot of maturity and growth to do, but we know who we are and we know the type of people we need to bring on. And some people, our company's not for everybody,
Yeah.
without a doubt, right? But we know who we're for. We're for a certain type of people who align with us. And the people who values align with our values or attract our values, man, they do well in our
Hmm.
company because of that. So the first thing we do is we hire based on that.
Yeah, we did the same thing. We listed our values. This is our purpose. This is
Yeah.
how we do things in our company. And it's interesting as you do more interviews, and I don't know if you're still doing a lot of the interviews, but as we were doing the interviews, you just watch body language as you start to talk about values. And
Yeah.
the people who are bought in start kind of leaning forward a little bit more and they light up a little bit. And the people who aren't bought in, they, you can tell in their body language,
Yeah.
they kind of don't care as much. And yeah, and so I agree, it starts there. You start discussing those at the forefront, and so that they recognize that these are important to us, and then so you can find that alignment, find those people that work well with you, and it's
Yeah.
easier to do as you do more and more of those interviews. But then a lot of people, what's hard in our clinic or with my coaching clients is we'll talk about purpose and values at the very beginning. And I think a lot of companies go through this, and that the owners get this bright idea that, hey, we're going to establish purpose and values, and then 2 to 3 months down the road, it just kind of, wait, did we talk about that one time? I forgot. It just kind
Yeah.
of has some initial momentum and then falls off. And I know you guys do more about that, and you're going to share a little bit more with us. So
Yeah.
I just want to interject a little bit, but go ahead.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And so once we hire someone based on our purpose and values and someone we think's aligned to that, the first thing they do is go through a training course on that. And it takes them several hours where sure, they could just read the purpose and values, but we literally created a several multi-hour course that takes them through each component and goes in depth on what that looks like. And we even have some kind of fun video examples and things
Cool.
to read. We're just trying to just impress that into them. Like it's one thing to say, teamwork, but well, what does that mean? What does that look like? Right.
Mm-hmm.
We really try to press that into them and then have them answer questions, right? And not just like A, B, C, but like some essays, like, they got to really think about it and write it down because we want people to really process these
Mm-hmm.
things. And so
Yeah.
that's the next thing. They go through that, and during their onboarding, we're making sure that they understand and agree with it. Right? There's been times where maybe we brought someone on, and then during the training we realized, gosh, I don't think they're a good fit. We're finding maybe they don't align with these values. Yeah, so that's kind of the initial thing we do.
Yeah.
And obviously during their onboarding, the first few months, their manager is continually watching, making sure is this person the best fit, right? So
Yeah.
continually matching this person to who we want, to our purpose and values. Does this person agree with our purpose? Does this person agree with these values? Can they live out our team creed? We're
Mm-hmm.
monitoring, and if they don't, then again, they're not bad. We're not bad. It's just like, hey, probably not a good fit. This is kind of who we know we need, and I don't think you align best with this, and so
Yeah.
you did better in a different setting. So
And those are some of the easiest firings, aren't they? I mean, when you can do a value-based firing, like those actions that you're doing or performing aren't living up to this value. I mean, you're not exemplifying teamwork when you act in this manner, or
yeah,
you're not showing, say, if professionalism was one of your values, it's not professional, and we can't tolerate people who come in late consistently. That goes against professionalism, so we're going to have to let you go. Yeah, again, you're not a bad person. That's just we don't tolerate people who don't align with the values.
definitely. Yeah, that's typically, I mean, most of our firings are probably more based on values these days than
Yeah,
anything. And then,
yeah.
so those are the big things. And then, so beyond that, though, now the question is, how do you make it a day-to-day part of the organization? Because it has to be. If not, it'll become that type of thing where, like, hey, what didn't we once talk about? Or, oh, hey, isn't it on the wall in the break room, right? So there's multiple ways we do this, and different things we experiment, try, and have fun with. But so I'll go through just some of the different ideas. One, obviously, we have it displayed. It's displayed everywhere. It's on our website, right? We don't
Sure.
hide it. It's in every one of our clinics. It's somewhere where patients can see. It's in a different admin areas or break rooms, just obviously so it's displayed, just to
Mhm.
remind people. Um, During our weekly meetings, we try to focus on a different value each week. That way, we're
Mhm.
cycling through them, right? Just to
Yeah.
just continue to drilling through. So maybe every couple months they're getting back through the cycle
But
and
you're just
trying.
talking about maybe just have a short couple minute discussion about a particular value.
Yeah, real quick. Yep, in a meeting, maybe a minute or two. Hey, this is the value of the week, and maybe talk about it. Maybe share a win based on it. Sometimes we'll have different. Maybe we'll take a couple minutes and camp on that and have a quick discussion about it, or
Sure.
maybe bring up a patient experience who
Exactly.
commented on that, things like that.
Yeah, really simple.
We do a weekly email from one of the founders, so Rich or I, and so every email we always try to highlight or one of the value or the value of the week and talk a little bit about that, or maybe share a story about that. Again, trying to interject that into it. Um, our HR manager sends out a weekly value of the week award winner. And
Mhm.
so another great way to
Yeah.
promote either a purpose or one of the values or one of our vision statements, somebody who's living out one of those aspects. So they're getting recognized,
Yeah.
sharing a fun story about them, and it's a sneaky way to remind people of that value, right? Because
Yeah.
look at your coworker live this out. Remember, it's one of our core values. Remember that that's part of our purpose.
Yeah, we did the same thing. We didn't do it anything weekly like that, but at our annual parties, we would have a value award for a particular employee and highlight some of the things they did over the course of that year that exemplified that value. And I'm sure your HR person is doing that exact same thing, but on a weekly basis, saying
Yeah,
this
yeah,
person exemplified blank because they did blank, and that exemplifies this value. Yeah, and
yeah.
I think that's great. That kind of recognition really brings that to people's minds, especially the receiver of the award, right?
Sure, yeah. And what's funny is you mentioned that is yesterday our leadership team met, and we are starting to finalize our awards for our annual Christmas party. And
Mhm.
one of the big aspects of our awards are our value awards, and we give out awards based on each value. So we
Yeah,
worked on that yesterday and coming close
that's
to
cool.
finalizing that.
That's
That's
cool.
another fun way to do it. So those are some of the main ways we do that. Each manager, obviously during reviews, the reviews are off. That's part of the integrated into the review process as well.
Hmm.
We're always finding just new ways, kind of, or fun ways to kind of interject that in. Or sometimes we'll send out
Yeah.
a random story or video to kind of remind people of something.
Yeah, we did the same thing with our reviews. It was not only value-based recruiting and hiring and value-based firing, it was value-based reviews. And we'd say, and in our reviews, just to get a little bit more specific, we would have the person that we're reviewing fill out essentially the same sheet that the supervisor would fill out. And that was, here are the values. What did you do in the past year, 6 months, whatever the time frame was,
I like that.
to exemplify those values,
Great.
and maybe even give yourself a score. I don't remember if we gave ourselves scores on the values, but maybe on some other things. And then and so the person who was being reviewed would say, these are some of the things that I did. And the supervisor would say, these are some of the things that I've seen you do. And how can you improve on some of those values and live those even better and more fully in the company? And so I love that you brought that up. It just reminded me, yeah, you take values into recruiting, hiring, firing, exemplify on a regular basis, but also bring it into things that might have pertain to a salary increase or a promotion. Like you want to promote those people and you want to give salary increases to people who really live out those values.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd say one of the best byproducts of this is the culture it kind of helps create. We're very protective of our culture,
Mhm.
and there's you probably have read Good to Great by Jim Collins, and I love his books. But
One of the
there's
best.
one part of the book that just stuck out to me. It's probably one of the most memorable quotes from a business book I've read, and he talks about um, I'll paraphrase it, but he talks about how your goal is to have your values infused into your company. So the culture is so basically he says your culture is so strong that you have a cult like culture
Mm-hmm.
so that anyone who doesn't so basically anyone who joins the organization either gets swept up into these values or they stand out like a sore thumb and get ejected like a virus. And I'm like, man, that's a powerful analogy or description of what it should look like, right? If you can
Yeah.
create such a strong culture in your company based on your values and your purpose, right? Where people who join the team get swept up in it or they stand out, right? There's no
Yeah.
in between. And the people
Right.
stand out. It's like that group pressure where you better join or get out.
Yeah.
And we're not perfect at that, but we see that at times, right? When we're doing
Yeah.
well, we see that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a good place to be, right? Because your culture is everything and your team depends on it. Your team depends on having it being working in a great place, a place they love and believe in, and no one wants the drama and no one wants the other stuff.
Yeah, it definitely takes some years and it takes some intentional effort to get to that point. But I know that over time, you can develop that culture such that people have finally gotten to the point where the purpose where they're waking up knowing how they're going to fulfill that purpose that day, not that they're just waking up and going to a job and punching the clock. It kind of elevates things to another level for the people that really buy in once you establish a strong culture like that. And these are people that will stay with you through thick and thin, work hard, and maybe even for less than where they would get other places because they buy into exactly what you are fulfilling in them and as a company.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
it's interesting.
creates so much strength.
Without a doubt. And now more than ever, right? COVID, it's a tough time for people, right? And you see everyone handling it differently. But I think now more than ever, our teams need a kind of a north star, a guiding light. They need to have something to look to, right? Because there's a lot of confusion and chaos in our offices, right?
Mhm.
There's frustrations. Everyone's a little bit kind of just have difficulties outside of here. There's just
Yeah.
challenges, right? So I think now more than ever, just reminding people. I know things are harder. I know we have kind of more tribulation in our offices, but this is who we are. Like
Hmm.
just focus on this, right?
Hmm.
We're headed towards that goal, right?
Yeah.
Just get people like to look up, right? Remember, this is where we're going. I know this
Yeah.
stuff stinks, but remember, this is what we're about. We're
Yeah.
about changing people's lives, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes the other stuff kind of just like settles down a little bit because, oh yeah, compared to that, this stuff's not as important. Yeah, I know I'm
Hmm.
frustrated and people are calling out sick or different things going on because of COVID, but if we can continue to focus on a purpose, it just helps people be aligned on where we're going.
Has that really been a stable thing for you as you've gone through the COVID experience this past 8 months or so? Yeah, you have 7 clinics and you're a successful guy, but you got bruised and battered and hit like every other PT owner out there. Did you find yourself reflecting back to the purpose and values and maybe either shifting them a little bit or relying on them more in order to get through it?
Oh yeah, Nathan, that's a great question. Yes, you know, So as a company, we decided to close down for 3 weeks. We didn't have
Okay.
to. We decided to, just mostly because we wanted to regroup. We wanted to like
Mm,
decide as a leadership team, how do we run the company? What do we do? We want to provide care, but in the safest manner. So we took time. But you know, Rich and I were back in day one. Right, we came back in the office and just I felt like I had to be here. But the very first thing we started talking about is let's remember what we're about, right? Because we can sit here and cry and complain and get frustrated, and there's all these things we could talk about, but we know what our purpose is, we know what we need to do, and let's focus on that. And so, for us, it was kind of that again that like we do sometimes we talk about our purpose being like a lighthouse, right? You're a storm lost at sea. Which direction do you go in? Boom, you see the lighthouse. I know where to go. And so there's many times in our company history for ourselves and for our team that's been the case. That we know where the lighthouse is. Let's go in that direction. So we were all bummed out. I mean, I'm telling you, seeing our company close down was brought tears in to my eyes. But that didn't last very long. Within minutes, I'm like, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to focus on what we need to do because I know what our purpose is, and that our purpose includes what we need to do for our patients and our team. So let's go for it. And so we just started moving forward.
yeah, that I can imagine that your weekly newsletters over this period of time in 2020 has had to focus more on the bigger picture perspective, why we're doing this, why these are the decisions that we're making, and this is why, and how it relates to where we're going. Did you find that a lot, that you had to
Oh,
reflect
yeah,
back on that a lot?
without a doubt. Yes. Yeah.
Mm. Especially with the decisions that you were making, were there some things that you changed in your workplace due to the pandemic? I mean, maybe you let some people go, maybe you've changed some things around on how you treat and whatnot, but still you kind of bounce those things and filter them through the purpose and values, I'm sure.
Yeah, we did have to make some changes. I think the biggest change was changing our treatment model just to have less people in the office at one time.
Yeah.
And then obviously just administratively, you know, spacing people out. We had to change some, we have a lot of moms, so we had to support them. So some couldn't come back to work yet, some
Wow.
needed to work from home. So shifting things around. But yeah, I think that, we're often comparing things, decisions against, purpose and values, but this is
Hmm.
definitely a time where we had to continually do that and remind ourselves of, this is what we're about. So yes, this is not best for the business, but this is who we are as a company, right? Yes,
Yeah.
this isn't the smartest decision based on revenue, but
Hmm.
this is who we are as a company, and we need to make this
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah, when you first established your purpose, and as you've refined it over time, uh, I wonder how you define it. Because as I'm working with my coaching clients, and I ask them their purpose, it usually has something to do with we provide great physical therapy care to the residents of blank, da, 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 da. And I want to tell them, okay, that's kind of the what. That's what you do, right? That's your job. Um, as a person and as a company, but it's more about the why, right? And I'm wondering if that's how you've thought about your purpose over time, and actually came upon it was, it, yeah, you do physical therapy, but for what purpose? And it goes back to a higher purpose, which I talked about with Sturdy McKee, and that is, helping people live pain free. If that was your higher purpose, or support the surrounding community so they're more healthy, yeah, that's a higher purpose. And how you go about doing it is you provide physical therapy. I'm just wondering how you defined purpose and helped you clarify what your purpose was.
Yeah, Nathan, I think we're kind of on the same page. We have always seen purpose is the most important question, right? The purpose to us is the why, right?
Mm,
And that is really the first question, first and foremost kind of question decision that any business makes to help make all the decisions under that, right? You see a lot of businesses in our industry and not in our industry start a business and they haven't made this decision and they're making these decisions, right? The problem is these decisions can be right or wrong if they don't know, they don't figure out the why, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
when we came up with a purpose. We that was the thing we were talking about. Like, the why do we exist?
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Okay.
Why are we doing what we're doing? Right? Because those are the overarching type of theme.
Hmm.
And what we also decided is we felt like our purpose needed to transcend our industry, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes I feel like if your purpose is in your industry, right, not that's bad. Like our purpose is to help people out of pain. That's
Hmm.
great. I mean, it's awesome. That's awesome. But we felt like maybe our purpose should be bigger than that, so that that because it just kind of takes us out of our industry and is almost more important than our industry. So
Yeah.
our purpose is enhancing lives of people in our community. So
Perfect.
what that does is it obviously first and foremost our focus is helping our patients get out of pain, but this now includes more than ever our team and
Hmm.
our community and the
That's right.
people around we work with and
Hmm.
other businesses. So so even vendors, right? Like so vendors come in, let's enhance their lives, right? Whoever we're dealing with, the neighbors in our building, let's enhance their lives. So
Mhm.
kind of gives us a little bit of a different perspective on kind of what we do overall.
Mhm. I find that time and again, as people really start defining their purpose, it becomes less about the physical therapy they provide and what they can do for other people's lives, and not and uh, and broadens the the influence to not just the patients, right? As business owners, we want our team members to feel a certain way, to have a certain experience and experience a certain culture. And we want to be the ones that kind of establish that culture to better their lives, just as if we were working on a patient one-on-one. We want to enhance, like you said, enhance their lives. And we want to enhance the patient's lives and thus affect the community in multitudes or in multiples. And so yeah, I find that as you establish that purpose, it becomes less about the physical therapy itself and the care that you provide. Well, not less about that, but to also include the workers, the people who are supporting you, the people that you interact with, and helping the vendors, the workers at the physician's offices and stuff like
Yeah,
that, to include everybody that you come in contact with, right? So it
handing
expands to more and more people.
right. Everyone in the team, no matter what your position is, can be part of that purpose because
Right.
it's bigger than just helping patients in pain, right? That's
Mhm.
so enhancing lives may look different for each person in a company, but we can all be a part of that.
Yeah. Were there some books that were influential to you in regards to purpose? You mentioned Good to Great, but were there others that guided you along in that regard?
Yeah, I definitely would say all of Jim Collins' books touch on that. So I
Yeah.
would definitely say that.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, Simon Sinek, Start with Why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'd
Definitely.
say the Scaling Up book as well.
Oh, I
Um,
love scaling up. Yeah.
so I think
Yeah.
those are probably there's others, but I would say those really kind of helped formulate some of our thinking.
Hmm. Yeah. That's great. Well, hey, anything else you want to share in regards to the purpose and how you guys live it, how you guys breathe it in Cory and Buehler?
Yeah, I would just say that overall, it just ideally and typically it does. It affects and influences most of our decisions, right? In terms of how we run the company on a day-to-day basis. Big decisions we're making. Um, in terms of it's a standard to measure our company with, even for not just our employees, but there's so Rich and I, the founding partner. Now, when we meet, sometimes we check each other on this. We'll be talking about things and be like, "Hey, dude, remember, man, this is our value. Does that align with that?" Or
Yeah.
hey, you're
Perfect.
talking about this, but come on, man, we know what we're about. So we check
Hmm.
each other all the time. So
Hmm.
if we didn't have that, we'd be making dumb decisions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And even like one of the things I'm most proud of it is in our company is it's not just Rich and I now. We have a team of partners,
Yeah.
and that really came out of um, Rich and I. When we were going through our purpose and values, realizing that for us, there's a couple values that really kind of compelled us to expand the ownership team because we had some incredible physical therapists that we felt like just based on what our purpose and our values and some of the things we had in our that we want in our culture that we needed to provide that opportunity for them and so I'm proud that kind of stemmed out of the purpose and values as we were going through
Totally.
that.
Yeah, that's the easiest route to expansion, right? Is to find those people in your company that you've not only vetted, but really figured out they align with you. And then first who, then what, right? There's a great Jim Collins phrase, but you find those people who are truly aligned with you. It's really to expand when you have those people on your team and open up other clinics or grow or provide them leadership opportunities. It makes growth so much easier and fulfilling.
Yeah, it's fun. It's
fun.
Fulfilling to see them grow and reach their dream.
Yeah. And you provide that foundation from which they can build off of. And it's not there unless you have those purpose and values and have them well stated, because now they've been with your company for a period of time. Like I said, they obviously align with you through all the decisions that you've made with them over time. So now to help them expand and start up a satellite clinic, get the next clinic going, it's pretty easy. They're simply living those purpose and values in a clinic, and you don't have to train that up all over again. You just continue the cycle all over again, and that makes it so much easier.
Yeah, we've never brought someone from the outside for a higher position. Everyone, starts in a position, and our goal, anyone in management or above, has kind of grown up in the company, moved up in their system.
That's huge. I love it, man. Well, thanks for your time, Brandon. It was great to have you on. You've got a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and I love that I finally got you on the podcast so you could share that.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. If you want to, do you have any contact information you can share or website people can go to check out your clinics?
Sure. Yeah, I can give my email and cell phone. My email is B Buehler, so two B's, BBUEHLER at C as in cat, B as in boy, physicaltherapy.com.
Mm-hmm.
And my cell is 714-345-0426.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for sharing your time. You've grown a ton. It's really impressive. You've always been someone that we looked up to. So I'm glad that we could tap into some of your wisdom, and good luck with everything. 2020 has been a tough one, man, but I know you guys are in a great position to withstand it and grow going forward.
Nathan, I just want to know, I appreciate what you're doing for a profession. I love your podcast. I love that you're helping coach and consult for other physical therapists, because our profession needs that. And so, just kudos to you for what you're doing for a profession and for all the help you're providing for physical therapy private practices out there.
Well, that's nice of you, man. I appreciate that. That coming from you, that's a huge compliment. Thanks.
Of course, yeah. All right, man.
All right. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.